Hello and welcome to episode 9 of Dust War Journals, your friendly neighborhood Dust 1947 podcast. My name is Johannes Haglund, also known as Frankie on certain parts of the interwebs, and today with me, as usual, I have...
Magnus, known as Magoff or Magwiz on the forums.
And Ludwig Lura.
And what have you guys been up to since last episode with in regards to Dust? Or other hobbies things, maybe, if you've been that inclined?
Yeah, a little bit of everything. Me and Ludde went to Linköping, to the event there.
That's correct. We had some tournaments, or at least I held the Swedish Masters for gridded. And I participated in the non-gridded version as well. And Magnus, you were demoing?
Yeah, I just ran some demo games during the weekend. Actually, fair amount of them. I guess I demoed for something like 25 people over the weekend.
Yeah, nice.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've been busy as well. I've don't know if you've if everyone's seen this, but there's been on the official Facebook group, there's been a kind of a challenge to get things painted. This is the second time I think they ran this in a row. And it's basically paint a point a day is the thing. Mm-hmm. So you, at the start of the month, you pick a certain amount of models, and it should equal the amount of days in the current month, or more if you want to. And the challenge is to complete painting those figures at the end of the month. And then there's a prize package that's raffled out randomly to the participants who actually finished. And I've dipped my toe in that this month. It was really interesting. I'm a firm believer in setting goals and having deadlines for your stuff, because that really kind of gets the thumb screws on to get you actually moving. True. Especially for people like me, because I enjoy painting, but I'm not very good at it, at least according to myself. But the main part is I paint pretty slow. I go very slow and methodical, and it's not all nights that I've had kind of the inclination or the energy to actually get painting. Mm-hmm. So having something like that, having a set goal, it's really great. And I did manage to finish. I think people might have seen this on the Facebook group or on the Instagram or such. I painted up 3 SSU transport choppers and also a red rain. So trying to get my SSU some love there.
Yeah, and we have to watch them before we leave here today, because we haven't been able to see them yet.
That's true. I should show you guys.
See them in person.
Yeah, exactly. So show you that I'm not cheating. And just to kind of reiterate on that a bit, I've finally got some good use out of my airbrush. I love the thing. Still have a lot to learn, of course, but just for basic like base coating and such, it's just absolutely freaking wonderful. And also for masking up and doing those straight lines like on the rotor blades, have the light tips on the rotors. That's awesome for that. So I'm very happy with it.
Did you have time to make any progress on the terrain you were starting with?
I actually haven't. I should probably do that next if I can find time for it. I did try out I can show you that later as well. I did try out the spackle technique on one of my the Thor miniatures, the MDF or HDF in the case of Thor miniatures, the Arabian houses. I think I might have gone a bit too thick. We'll see when it's finished. But I'm going to try it out at least and just experiment, see where it gets me. So yeah, I'm working. I also got working on some more terrain pieces actually. I got big bag of plastic palm trees. Like nice. Yeah, and those are pretty big. I think it was a bag of 50 palm trees.
Wow.
For like $4 or something in that vicinity.
You bought it on the internet?
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
So
do you want to tip people?
I can actually put a link in the description of the podcast for people to check it out. It was from AliExpress. And good. Usually you have to be a little bit careful when ordering from overseas, at least if you live in Europe, because it can, if you're unlucky, it can be big income tax stuff. Yeah, so you have to be careful with that. AliExpress is usually pretty safe. I have yet to actually receive any tax problems from that. But it's something that you should be aware of.
Definitely. And you know, it makes me think here, I hope they are listening, the organizers of the painting contest. They should have some sort of system where you can swap miniatures for terrain pieces. I think you should be able to participate with okay, perhaps then you can't use the Thor, unfortunately, but perhaps at least if you paint the studio terrain, I think that should be some equal measurements. Like a pillar should be a tank or something, at least 15 points or 12 points, or
maybe. That's a very interesting idea. And one of the main reasons I like it is that it gives you an incentive to actually get working on it. And I'm a big believer in that. I really am. So I'm a big fan. I hope this continues on.
Yeah, I like the spirit of it, and I like to participate, but I don't like deadlines. I'm more like a Douglas Adams kind of guy. You know, I like the swooshing sound they make when they pass. I usually just start painting when it's too little time left to a tournament, and I need to paint something.
You're more like Calvin in Calvin and Hobbes.
Yeah, most
so
likely.
I think the thing is that I only work best under pressure. You only work under pressure. So.
Yeah, that's true. That's so fucking true. Yeah, I need a gun to my head, or else I don't start painting. That's just. But when I do, I enjoy it though. So it's just getting started with it.
Yeah, that's one of the main things for me as well. So it's good to have something kind of lingering. And it's not a big thing. You should set up goals for yourself, but you should never beat yourself up if you can't reach the goals. Yeah. That's as important, I think.
And I have a problem right now also that half the things I need to paint for Poland is half painted already, so I can't be in the tournament. I mean the competition, because
you've already started.
Yeah, I put some paint on some boots,
and you have some special like that you need. Yeah, I know the feeling. That's why for this month I kind of made it easy for myself. It's 30 points that you have to paint up. So I figured I was just going to paint one model. So I'm painting the Devastator.
Ah, yeah, that's good. That's very good. Oh, you know. We could have a personal challenge, because I haven't done my Devastator yet.
You're on.
Yeah, let's do Devastator versus Devastator, and we should have a game then afterwards and play.
You're on.
Okay.
So we'll see some kind of high noon scenario. Yes. Who shoots first?
Devastators at dawn.
Yes. This is great. I like it already.
Awesome. So let's get going. We have quite a lot of news from this past month to talk about. First of all, there's a bunch of new releases from the studio. First off, we have the Luftwaffe Fallschirmjäger Hero Pack. And this is kind of the first taste of the new style of hero releases. They kind of go back to what they've done before, but it's been a while since we've seen the last one of this kind. It's 3 different heroes, and for this, I think the new thing for this style is that they're all from the same fraction. So in this case, it's also a sub-fraction inside the fraction, because it's not only Luftwaffe, it's also only Fallschirmjäger. So all of these heroes are airborne infantry. We have Rolf. We've already seen him. We've all seen him, love or loathe or whatever we do. we know who he is, basically. Then we have 2 new people we haven't seen before, and it's Kurt, which is the interesting thing about him is, I think, fighting spirit, 2 SMGs, and expert Panzerfaust. So he's basically the frontline kind of assault hero.
And he's pretty cheap as well.
Yeah, 7 points. That's not very much for a hero. And I think this is one of the things we've seen with the new version of the game is new, cost-effective, and really powerful heroes to really make heroes worth taking in your armies. I really like that, because it really kind of gets you flavor and makes it possible to suit your army to your own personal needs, and you can tailor it fluff-wise to work for you. I really like that. So I think this guy could be not as kind of ubiquitous in the Luftwaffe as Rolf, maybe, but I think we're going to see a lot of him.
And I still would like to encounter Rolf, and he's doing something. Because I still think I've played him 3 or 4 times now, and I've never noticed him on the board.
Oh.
He's just passing some. It just seemed like he's waving and he's saying hi, and then he's off. I don't know what is. I have massive luck, perhaps, or I know everyone else is hating him, but
Yeah. Those personal experiences may vary.
Yeah. Disclaimer.
Yeah, exactly. Third hero in this pack, Galeazzo. Cost 9, also airborne, and it's the first officer hero for the Falkenjäger. And this is very interesting because he's an officer, and he has a new skill that we haven't seen before, quick recovery, which basically means that you always get at least one action at the turn that you airdrop, and then you roll and see if you get another one. So you always have at least one action, and you have the possibility to get 2 actions on the turn you airdrop him. And that's really good for an officer.
Yeah, it's the latest RAV. I'm getting the vibe from players in Sweden, at least, that he's the one, and he will change everything and stuff like that. We'll have to wait and see, of course, but I mean, he's an Italian. How hard can he be? I mean, sorry, I don't know what I was thinking.
Yeah, I also think that he's really good, actually. I think he will be a big boost to the Luftwaffe, who has been, I don't know what you would call them, like very dicey, depending on if you're lucky and roll that, that you get your action when you land. You can wipe out a lot of stuff immediately, but if you're a bit unlucky and only get a few or maybe even none, then you can be in big trouble. So this is something that will give it more, more stability. You can count on this guy.
Yeah. So it's going to be very interesting, very exciting to see on the table.
And he's got an interesting combination, since he is also, he's got the submachine gun, so he can put out some bullets, at least towards infantry. But he's also carrying demo charge, and he is an expert on the demo charge as well.
That's really weird.
It is, but it's interesting. So you can do lots of different things with this guy.
Yeah. I'm kind of thinking, is an officer that you suddenly want to have in your front line.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they're Luftwaffe, everyone is in the front line. So
yeah, that's basically true. But that also means that you could airdrop him next to an enemy walker.
Yeah.
Get 2 turns and get sustained fire with a demo charge.
And how is it with now? If you combine him with another squad, this quick recovery, what do we think? Yeah, he shares it.
Yeah.
So if there's you guys know this better. Is there any particular unit that has demo charges as well, or something like that he wants to drop?
I don't think demo charges, but really the tank hunters, Panzerfausts and stuff. Yeah, any opportunity for them to just position anywhere on the board and have the opportunity to get a sustained attack on round 1. That's incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
So we'll see how it shakes out. It's really interesting. Next we have the Recon Mickey 2 and 3 model kit, and I actually think that there's been a mistake here. I'm not really completely sure. We've seen versions of the Recon Mickey before. This kit allows you to build 2 different versions, one with the scout skill and dual heavy machine gun as the main weapon, and the other version has a recoilless rifle and just the extra, and that version also comes in both block and USMC versions. The thing that's a bit confusing here is that the names of on the cards that's available in this kit, at least if we go by the official DA Studio kind of store page, they don't match up with the previous Recon Mickey releases.
I'm not sure. This is confusing.
This is really confusing because
what is what and
because as it is now on the store, we have 2 different versions of the Recon Mickey 2, one with the dual heavy machine gun and one with the recoilless gun. And so what I think happened here is that something went wrong, or there's been some kind of restructuring with the naming that hasn't really kind of cascaded to the other versions, and the 2 and 3 in this kit should really be the 1 and 2, because then everything matches up correctly. So something has kind of been, I don't know,
Yeah,
messed
I'm
up
not
somewhere.
sure about this, how it's supposed to be.
Yeah, it's strange. It's not a really big problem because,
Not really, just
but it's something
pick
that
which
you
card
should
you're playing and pay the points for
exactly.
it.
But you should be aware of it, and it does present a very big and specific personal problem to me, because
Okay,
I'm the
why?
person who's maintaining the battle scribe
right,
files.
Yeah, so.
How should I deal with this? Should there be 2 different versions of the Recon Mickey 2? Or should I
don't know.
I haven't decided how to
Call them like A and B or something.
Yeah, probably.
2A or
I haven't
2B.
decided really how to do that, but it's something that you should be aware of at least.
Mm.
Yeah.
And then we have something that I think created quite a few ripples, and that's the new Spetsnaz transport helicopter, the Invader.
What's that? Have I missed something?
I think everyone kind of flipped
Nothing
their
to
shit.
see here. Move
Oh,
along.
yeah.
So yeah, 25 points first off, so it's a pretty expensive chopper, but it makes up for it with 6 passenger slots, big Gatling guns and rocket pods, so quite a lot of firepower, and a new special skill which we talked about before, but this is the first vehicle that actually has it, and that's assault vehicle. And that, just as a refresher, that means that all passengers inside this helicopter can activate and disembark after the vehicle has moved. So that means turn 1, this chopper can just move in and position itself almost anywhere on the board, and then the passengers can disembark and do their thing. This is really, really powerful. It's going to be very interesting to see how this performs.
I assume that's how it's meant to be, but on the card at least, that's not how the rule is written.
Oh.
No, it only says that the passengers can activate after. It doesn't say anything about disembarking.
That's true.
So the rule as written on the card doesn't do anything.
That's that's actually a good point. But that's also, you can say that the rules on the cards, this has been kind of clarified multiple times, are only meant as a short reminder.
So
I think yes, it should be more clarification than that. I think what is it in the rule errata? I think that's prints the whole text for this skill, and that says that they can disembark.
I'm guessing that it's going to be in the next expansion, Condor. We've heard that a few more vehicles are going to have this rule, so it's probably...
Yeah, I was actually surprised when I saw that, because in my mind this was tailor-made for the Desert Scorpions, so I kind of figured this was going to be Desert Scorpions' kind of signature skill.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I like this. I like this very much, because I think they hit almost a breaking point here with 25 points, because I've read on Facebook and I understand people who think 25 points is a lot of points. It's like the most expensive Russian tank, so why should I take this, and is it really point wise and stuff like that. It's risking a lot. If it gets shut down, you lose a big portion of your army. On the other hand, of course, I've heard and seen a lot of scared people who are afraid that this will just destroy the game, and so I feel like 25 points, all are displeased with the 25 points, the Russians and their opponents. So I think and also I would like to add, I'm sorry I'm interrupting you there, Johannes, the most interesting thing for me with this one is that it has 2 limitless weapon lines. And to me that is the most important or interesting thing, because I think I see this also as an anti-air. I mean, if you have one of these and the opponent don't have anything particular in their army list, you can kill anything that flies. And then, well, the frustration I've had with choppers when I've been playing them is that I shoot my rocket pods or something like that and I kill perhaps something, but then I have my small machine guns left. The same thing when I play German or Allied and I have a aircraft. I'm left with that little puny pew gun, but this guy can wipe out 2 units or focus on one forcefully. And so the big thing with the Invader, I know it of course is the assault rule, but I think over time that the two endless, limitless weapon lines are the real killer, actually, for this one.
Very interesting thoughts, yeah. I kind of have two main points about the point cost and the effectiveness of this vehicle. And that's, I've seen both kind of reactions from this. People who say, oh, this isn't good enough, it's too expensive, it's not going to do enough. And the other people are saying, this is terrible, this was totally kill my army, why have you done this, life is over, everything.
Mm-hmm.
And that to me says they kind of nailed it.
Yeah, that's my thoughts exactly.
Yeah.
Just
I agree 100% with that, because I'm guessing against some lists it's gonna be absolutely awesome and do tons of damage and everything, and against some other lists it's not gonna do that much, because like you say, it has those two machine guns, or it's a Gatling gun or something, yeah, whatever. At the same time, those weapons, even if they are not limited, they aren't going to do too much damage against vehicles, or at least heavier vehicles. So it kind of depends on what it's up against.
Yeah, and that kind of brings me to my other point, which is that it shakes up the metagame quite a lot, because people who are afraid of this are going to have to build their armies in order to deal with it. And that means that people who are afraid of their armies are going to build against that. That they are reacting to their reactions. Yeah. And that's how the meta game kind of works. And I absolutely love that kind of stuff. I really love to try and figure out how people are thinking and what people are experimenting with and all that thing. I think it's exciting. I'm looking forward to seeing this in action, definitely.
Yeah, me too.
Because even if since it is 25 points, you can't afford 2 on a 100-point list, not to be optimal. And if you only have 1, and your opponent managed to, even if you march move and you get that super save, gets that hit, get immobilized on the critical hit chart. It has happened. We've seen it happen a few times. So it's not... And then it goes down. That guy most likely is fucked. I would say his army. He can try to survive as long as he can. I mean, and then I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, and the final new release is not a new unit, but it's a new objective marker, new scenery object, and it's the rocket prototype. I like the look of this. It's very interesting, very kind of pulp tech style. Do we think there's going to be any special rules for this, like we've seen on the terrain document?
I seriously hope so, but on top of my head, I can't think of something for once. What could it make? Make your vehicles fly for one turn or something. No, but it's awesome. I love that they do this, and I hope Marek has one, or when we come down to Poland, so one can get one back home, because that's a terrain piece I want. It's the same when I saw the Babylon pillar the first time with the lions and stuff.
Oh yeah.
I was like, oh, I'm getting one of those. Unfortunately, I thought I couldn't afford more than one, but I'm getting one, and it's the same with this one. I'm getting one. Yeah.
And there's also been another kind of release from the studio, from official persons. We have an updated FAQ and rules errata document. Not very big updates, to be sure. The FAQ update is mostly some minor clarifications, so it's not any real rules changes. The rules errata, however, is quite bigger, and that adds the rule that if an aircraft carrying passengers has march moved, that means that the passengers inside can't attack until the aircraft moves again. And that is to kind of mitigate the potential problem of just not being able to reach, like we have talked about before, the steel guard and anti-infantry unit, for example, inside inside a chopper.
Yeah, we talked about this a bit last month, and I haven't. I haven't played any tournament since then, so I don't know. In Linköping, Ludde, do you remember anything really impacted by this?
Well, yeah, actually, when I met Essa, he had 3 choppers in our gridless game, and he felt he needed to fire with one of them at the first turn, and he did. And that meant that my Kampfläufers had shot down that chopper before the end of the turn 1. And I wouldn't have done that if they had been. So to me, in that game, it was good. Very good. And it was frustrating for him. But the other choppers, of course, I couldn't touch because they had that super save. So I just kept them suppressed. But so that's the only personal experience I had.
Yeah, but I mean, did you see any transport helicopter with, for example, anti-tank steel guarding?
Yeah, sorry, I'm so unclear there. Essa had that in all 3. I had 3 transport choppers with the Spetsnaz grenade launcher guys Yakov and shit. Everything. He just...
So what's your experience out of this change for the helicopters?
All good. He came out of the choppers turn 2 and made my life a living hell, of course, but he couldn't on the first turn, so I had the chance or opportunity to at least get at them. And when he risked, because when he shot with the 3rd group from the 3rd chopper, it got shot down. So,
and that's kind of the thing you want. You want to have to risk in order to gain those rewards. So I think this is a good change.
Yeah. That's the only thing that you think about, of course, if you want to be a, I don't know, besserwisser or something, I don't know. But why then isn't the same rule for all transport vehicles? I mean, I see those beautiful boats that the Germans have. I mean, with the 4-legged ones, the Prince Luther and all the rest, Stummel and stuff. And if those guys go top speed, I would like to fire grenade launchers out of those and try to hit something. Yeah, hitting the sky would be a problem.
I mean, I can agree, like, thematically, and it would be easier to have a rule that covers all transports, but at the same time, the ground transports, they are a lot easier to hit. They are a lot easier to kill, so I'm guessing that's why they did the change only for the helicopters.
Yeah, and it's basically to make up for the March Move aircraft save.
I get that.
But I understand your point. Just to get some kind of equity for the transports, I kind of understand that absolutely.
And we don't need new rules, but perhaps if you moved 5 or more spaces a turn, you would get a cover save. I don't know. You got that from the Crazy Jim, but if he would sit in a small walker and run and get a super save, I think that would be cool. Or perhaps I'm just... Oh.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see in the future. Things might very well change there, but...
and I think...
still...
And yeah, that's a good point, because one thing that this tells us is that the studio is open to suggestions and feedback.
Yeah.
Because this is something that when the new March Move save rules were kind of announced, that people were complaining loudly about stuff like this happening. And so they went in and, I shouldn't say fixed, but they addressed it in one way. And now we see how that shakes out. And maybe we get some change or some errata later on. We'll see. But just the fact that nothing is set in stone. And I think, of course, the basic rules of the game should always remain the same. Just to not shake it up too much. But kind of certain small tweaks like this, I think, just helps the game, makes it grow, and makes it feel kind of dynamic and alive.
Yeah, that's true. I agree.
Right. There's also been quite recently Grégoire Boisbelot. I think you have to say you got a good kind of pronunciation guide for me on Facebook. Well, I'm sorry if I mispronounced. I tried as best as I could. He recently had an interview with the Beast of War blog, and there's going to be a link to this interview video on the description of the podcast episode. It was really, really interesting interview, and you really should go check it out. There were some few tidbits that we could talk about that came out of this. First off, that there's an official mobile app in development for Dust. Both as an army builder, which should include all the platoon rules, all the extra kind of point bonuses for factions and such, and also a collection manager, collection tracker. And at the moment, this is kind of has a release window of next year, so 2018. I'm looking forward to this because, well, of course, it would free up some of my time since I'm working on the Battlescribe stuff. Well, I'm probably going to keep on doing that anyway, let's be honest. So but just having something official, I think that's a very good step.
I'm really looking forward to this. I haven't heard the interview, but this official app sounds really awesome because one of the other games that I also play is War Machine, and they have a really nice app which you can also use while playing a game. You can have your cards digitally, and you can record damage on stuff, and when you repair you can remove damage, and if both players have the app you can actually connect to each other. So you can, take a quick look at, okay, how many damage does that unit have left or whatever. You can't change anything on your opponent's cards, but you can see them directly in your device.
Now, if it gets to that point, that I'm with.
That would be awesome.
Since Johannes is doing such a great job with Battlescribe, and I'm not trying to be overly positive here to a friend, but when I heard about it, I just thought, okay. Well, good for some people. I don't give you, because I have the Battlescribe. But of course, if you can link in with each other and do stuff like that, and you got the extra, then of course it would be nice if they do it. But
and for me, I'm interested to see how they kind of deal with the platoon rules and faction rules, because those kind of things is something that's difficult to implement in Battlescribe.
Yeah.
I've tried. I'm probably going to find some kind of solution to add some type of functionality for it, but I'm not there yet. I'm just doing it in my spare time.
Like I said, I think this app sounds awesome as long as the physical cards are still available in one way or the other, at least as PDF printable, because a lot of people really, really like to have those physical cards.
Yeah.
And I would say, especially if you play like small games when you don't have that many cards, or for example, when I'm out demo game, I don't want to have to show them my app and everything. I want the cards. I want people to be able to hold the cards and take really careful look at them.
Are you telling us you have a thing in your mobile phone you don't want people to see? Where's your mobile phone? Where is it? Isn't that? No, I'm just fucking with you. Sorry.
No problem. You can always check my stuff.
Oh yeah, good.
That's good to know. Another interesting tidbit that came out of this interview is that Dust Studio have plans for a global campaign play, and that's actually scheduled for this summer. So it's going to be released very, very soon, and we don't know very much about it at all. There's more info on it in the interview itself, of course, but it's basically going to be all kind of sizes. It's going to be everything from big tournaments to like smaller local groups and getting together. But the thing is that it's going to give the players a chance to influence the game in some way, to influence the story, to influence the order of how things are released, for example. If the SSU do really well in one particular part of, then they get their releases first for a certain part of the year maybe. Stuff like that. It's going to be really interesting. There's supposed to be some kind of online component where you can check progress in your area of the world and so on. This sounds very interesting.
Yeah, sounds nice. It's always good to have some extra incentive
and
to play games.
And just to get playing regularly, to get 1 or 2 games off each month. I mean, that's great. And connected to that, they're also going to be what they call the I Get Out of the House program. And that's kind of similar in certain ways to the Paint a Point Today raffle. But this is, you get out of your house, basically you have a game of Dust 47 at your local store. So you make the game visible to other potential players. You share that on social media, and at the end of the month there's a raffle. And you can get stuff like patches and weapon sprues and stuff out of that. So it's basically a way to make the game itself more visible, both on social media and also at the local gaming stores.
Yeah, that's a good thought there.
Sounds like a good idea.
Was that also only for US, or was that for the world? 'Cause some of it...
Some of this stuff should all... At the moment is all only in the United States. For this particular program, I actually don't know. I don't think he elaborated on that point. I hope this is going to be available in some form worldwide, but I'm not sure. But go check out the interview. Very, very interesting. There's also been a blog post on Dust France blog. There's going to be a link for this as well. We have a lot new interesting images of the new Cthulhu, both the miniatures and, more interesting maybe for us, new terrain pieces.
Definitely.
And some of this, we've seen the big Cthulhu pillar before, but what I found very interesting is that we're going to see kind of corrupted versions of already existing scenario elements. For, like, for instance, the Babylon pillar with the lions. We're going to see a Cthulhu version of that.
Yes.
And that's really, really awesome. I absolutely love that. And especially just thinking of the possible ways you can paint that.
Yeah.
That could be extremely interesting.
Right.
Definitely, and I like the little cave that they put on the back of that Cthulhu pillar, the third there. And wasn't it also on a picture on Facebook with from the expo now, which had a smaller statue beside in one of the glass. One had enlarged the picture from the booth they had at expo, and in one of the glass jars or glass monters, they had I think it was the Sphinx, just a small one, or just well, it's at least one new terrain piece there, and you couldn't make out if it was a Cthulhu-like thing or if it was just a regular Babylon.
Interesting. I haven't missed that. I'm gonna have to go and check that out.
What I really also appreciate, though, with that picture, which no one else I think had noticed yet, was that on the demo table for the Dust Expo, I don't know if you say this, but it was only Thor miniature terrain, and that was very pleasing to me. Sorry, I'm not anti-Dust Studios, but I love it if both get covered, because...
Exactly. Now, the Thor guys deserve all the praise they can get, in my opinion. All right, let's talk a bit about Dust Monthly, the magazine. First off, we had two releases since we recorded early for the last episode, and now we're recording late for this one. So there's been two releases of the magazine since then. In the May issue, we had some previews for upcoming units and stuff. Most of it has been released or been up for pre-order at this point, but there's still a few things that we haven't seen from official points yet. The new Axis night fighting plane. We've talked about this when we talked about the preview, the big preview stuff a few episodes back. But now we got the names of the units. We have the bomber version of it. It's called the Hexe. And we got the fighter version of it, which is called the Geist. So kind of an occult theme going on there. And from the box art, it's pretty clear that this is a Luftwaffe-specific aircraft. So I'm looking forward to this. I'm hoping that they are doing some kind of special rule for the kind of night fighting radar array. I have no idea what that's going to be, but I hope they do that to kind of give that an in-game reason for being there.
Yeah, I was I am a Night Lord fighter for the Chaos in Warhammer 40k. And I loved it in the beginning when you could choose to fight at night in the early versions. So I hope, even if I'm not playing Luftwaffe, even if I'm not the one choosing it, I would love that my opponent will invoke, okay, I'm fighting you at night. Oh shit. And the range are different and stuff like that. Of course, you can't have night then all of the game, probably, because that could be unfair. But at least if you could start in night or end in night, or I don't know.
Yeah, we did a version of this for the big battle at GothCon.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did.
And that was really, really fun. So
yes.
basically you have limited range on being able to see other units for the first round. Next round it was increased a little bit. Next round it increased another little bit, and so on. So very effective, and it's really useful on that bigger table.
Oh yeah.
The other units have that is the new heavy Tesla walker for the SSU. The KV3D model, or the official name according to the box art here, is the Type 47.
Yeah.
There's quite a lot of units in the game that have the number 47 in the name, actually, if you really go forward. You have the Pelican plane for the Allies, you have this one, you have the new amphibious command vehicle for the SSU that has 47 in the name. There's a lot of them. So,
yeah, but then that's kind of historically correct.
Yeah,
a lot of
true.
the stuff have the number of the year they were released. So
yeah, that's true. And all the blocks are putting up new stuff in the lore of the game as well. So yeah, it makes sense. But just Type 47. That's the name of it. That's I don't know. It seems a little bit too generic, maybe.
Yeah, but I like the design of the machine gun on top. If just switching topic there, but still keeping with the Tesla walker. So I liked how they tweaked this new one. But did we know? Hasn't it been said it was a Type 5 or Type 6 walker?
I'm not sure. I think just looking at it, I'm guessing it's a Type 5.
Because it's extra armor plates. No, it's the both the Matroska and the...
Yeah.
But no, not both of them. It's only the Babushka that has the platings.
Yeah, that has the place, but they're still Type 5, both of them.
Yeah, those are both
So
Type
I'm
5.
guessing it's the same basic chassis, more or less. So,
but it's a little bit more powerful in the body as well, isn't it?
slightly, yeah.
But
that's also a thing. We'll see that this comes in two different versions, so the card comes in two different versions. So we have one block version and one PLA version. So the Chinese army.
Aha, okay, so they're going to use it. And also the... interesting.
So that might be kind of rationale for the redesign, I mean.
Yeah.
Because it's a Chinese kind of variation of the walker.
Interesting.
yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see when it comes out.
And as we record this, the June issue of Dust Monthly was released just earlier today. And unfortunately, it's going to be the last issue with Joe McLaughlin as head editor. And at this moment, we don't know what that means. If that means that the magazine is just shutting down, or if someone else is going to take over, we just don't know. So I think I can speak for all of us here. Then you can say we're very sad to see Joe step down.
Oh yes.
But at the same time, I can't blame him for the reasons he stated. It's just too much work compared to what he feels he gets out of it, and he wants to focus that on his family and on other hobby stuff. I can absolutely sympathize with that.
Definitely.
But I hope someone is brave and kind of resourceful enough to take up the reins, because I think we do need something like this for the community. It's really been a big boost just to have something to look forward to and discuss. And
definitely, I think both Joe and before him Floris, they've done a fantastic job over the years, and hopefully somebody can pick up the flag and continue.
Yeah, absolutely.
True.
So that's all the news. There's quite a bit of it. There's been a lot of activity around the game this past month. So let's get over to our discussion topic for the day, and that's going to be factions, or more specifically the faction bonus rule. And there's been some discussions around this rule, especially now in preparation for the European Championships in Poland. And it's been quite a discussion. How exactly are you counting this? The 10% and the 75%, do you round them up? Do you round them down? Is it up to the individual organizers? The rules themselves doesn't really specify. So I've always kind of imagined it that you round down. But not all people interpret it this way, it seems. And yeah, it's a little bit of an issue, but I don't know.
Okay, so how do you mean this? I mean, I don't use Facebook, so I'm not sure about this discussion
the issue,
actually. So
the
give
issue
me an
with
example.
Yeah. In the EU Championship, the point limit for the armies are set to 125 points.
Mm-hmm.
That means that if you get the faction bonus, then you get an additional 10%. That means 12.5 points.
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean that you can only add 12 points extra for your heroes or 13? Do you round up or do you round down? And the way I've interpreted this is that you can add 12, but you can't add 13 because 13 is more than 12.5.
Yeah,
that's how I've interpreted it.
That's what I would say as well.
Yeah, and none of the polls basically agreed with me.
That's the mathematically way you should.
Yeah, but I mean, you do get 12.5 points, but there's nothing in the game that costs half points.
Yeah.
So that last half point is going to get wasted.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of my point. But in this case, the tournament organizer decided that it's going to be rounded up, so it's 13 points. And of course, no problem with that, as long as everyone is kind of agreeing. That's how you do it. Absolutely no problems for me. I just have a suggestion that to avoid this discussion altogether, always have point limits in multiples of 20.
Yeah.
Because 20 is the lowest number that's equally divisible by both 10 and 4. And that means you never have any fractions, either at 10% or 75%.
Mm-hmm.
So 120 points, then it's 12 points. And you have 3/4, which in this case is, 80 points.
Mm-hmm.
So absolutely no rounding, even numbers, everything's awesome.
Yeah.
And I mean, to get this faction bonus 10%, you need to have 75% or more. So that half point, if you are, the half point under, you will not. In my view, you would not get the bonus.
Yeah, I agree.
You would have to be at least that half point above it. Yeah, that's. I don't know. To me, that seems fairly obvious.
yeah, but now we have 138, I voted for 137, but my list is 138, of course.
No, but in the end, like you say, it doesn't really matter as long as everyone knows how it works, and then it's fair for everyone.
Yeah, exactly. So to kind of speak of the rule itself in general, how do we think how this rule has affected the game as a whole? Has it been a positive change?
That's a very interesting question. For me, it's made the game a bit different, and I'm saying, probably positive thing, because people are, at least in our meta, using this rule a lot.
Yeah.
Far from all lists are faction lists, but a lot of them are. Many people are using this bonus.
Yeah. Most, I would say, definitely use it.
Yeah,
But as we saw in GothCon, it's definitely not game-breaking. It's not something you need in order to do well. The list that won did not use the faction bonus.
Yeah, well,
yes, it did.
Because now it's to won it.
Sorry.
Second place.
Yeah, I'm sorry, that's true. Second place.
Number 2 and 3, actually, I think, did not use it.
That's correct.
And the tournament before that, the SSU... No, he was only third place, but he also had no bonus. But and to me, it's still, though, that I'm a slave under it. For some reason... think that
it hurts if you're not using it.
Yeah, for some
because it's those extra points and I can't get them.
And I limitate myself with my building when I build my lists. That is for sure. I try to breach that bubble, or I may crack it and try to think in other ways. But now, once again, in Poland, I'm streamlining it.
And actually, that's one of the things that I really like about this rule, because it makes people build fluffy armies. It makes them build armies that are consistent. Instead of just, I'm going to take this from over here and this from over here because those are the best units. People don't really do that as much, at least anymore.
No, that's true. That's true. But to me, for myself, I find myself not doing it out of free will. I demand it out of myself. Or, well, how should you put it? I force myself to do a fraction list even if I don't want it.
That's your own mental prison.
Yes,
so.
of course. It's my mental problem, man.
Of course,
mental problems, yeah.
But here's my question then. Is that actually a bad thing?
No, not
because
when it's fluff right.
It does force creativity in a way.
Oh yeah. That's why this is so much better than the thing that we had on Fantasy Flight and the Warfare, when you had to have just that and that and that to play it. Now you got the option, and now you're motivated. It's not a penalty if you do it wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, you can choose, and this is so much more how games like this should be. So it's all positive. It's just frustrating for myself when I can't.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at it as a whole, where at least in my view, there's more diversity between the lists. There are now in the tournaments that I have seen, basically all kinds of lists.
Yeah.
Whereas
if you go fight an SSU player, you don't just fight an SSU list. You fight a Spetsnaz list, or you fight a Red Guards list, or you fight whatever.
But the problem is, of course, that if we should be honest, if you go and face an SSU, 99% of the time it's Spetsnaz or a Red Guard army. A lot of the SSU has been taken away. If you look at the list that we're watching, okay, it's a KV-47 list, pops up now and again, but it's not.
I don't know. I've seen a fair amount of people playing the Red Guards, for example.
Yeah, I mean, but Red Guards or Spetsnaz, those are so.
And I've seen a fair amount playing Steel Guards, KV-47s. I would say the SSU are pretty diverse in that. What I was going to say is that we still see a lot of NDAC lists.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. I think for the Axis, I think that's going to change once the Condor book arrives. Because that's going to give a lot of platoons for the Luftwaffe. Yeah. And that's going to make the Luftwaffe much more interesting to field for a lot of people, I think. So that's... and we do see at least some block Axis as well. But I agree, most of the Axis units or armies that we see are NDAC armies. That's an issue.
If the players haven't fallen in love with the Fallschirmjäger, because we have some that play the Fallschirmjäger just because they love the miniatures. And that is good, of course, but they don't. No one plays the Fallschirmjäger to win. They play it because they have, and that's good because they are the new units. They're the new kids on the block. They should be the interesting. And a company could risk it and make them the most powerful, but they can be powerful, but mostly they lose. Yeah. At least in our games.
They are a very, very fun army to play.
That they are,
but they're not very tournament kind of focused. For my personal opinion for the Luftwaffe, I'm actually kind of planning at some point to build a Raketentruppe-based army instead, because I think that's more powerful and more kind of forgiving than the
but then again, we soon will see the new heroes, the new airborne heroes that might shake this up quite a bit actually, because like we said before, a couple of those heroes, I mean, up until now there's only been Rolf. He's a good hero, don't get me wrong, but these two completely new guys, I think they will add a lot to the Luftwaffe army. They will be much more of a force to be reckoned with.
And I think it's also a matter of learning to play the Luftwaffe, because you do need to have another type of mentality to play them correctly, I think. Or not to play them correctly, to play them efficiently is basically the thing I was fetching for there.
And I'm realizing also that some of the block lists for all the three armies, I mean Allied Axis and SSU, need a certain type of units to make them work. And since all units hasn't come back to production yet, it's not that easy, of course, also to build a good block army get that diversity that you need to get it to work.
The same is true for some other sub-factions as well, like the Blutkreuz. Some of the stuff are coming back, but it's impossible to find the Blutkreuz heroes anywhere at this point.
Oh, that's true. But the Blutkreuz has so many other problems to get the balance right, and that's also. I'm getting more and more into that. If you play Blutkreuz, you need to play them in a mixed Blutkreuz and block army, and you should forgo the fraction bonus, because otherwise they are so seriously underpowered, and they have no. Well, it's hard to balance their short range.
We've talked about this a little bit before, and I think you were a bit more optimistic earlier about them.
Oh yeah.
But the thing is, at least that's how I feel. They are sort of a one-trick pony.
Mm-hmm.
If they can implement their strategy, and if the opponent doesn't really have enough stuff to take them down, they might very well just run straight over him.
Mm-hmm.
But if the opponent know how to do it, and if they have at least some countermeasures there, they're gonna have the Blutkreuz are gonna have a really difficult time, because they have all this close combat stuff, and the lasers are only powerful against certain things. The laser infantry I'm talking about, and they have serious issues with a lot of other stuff. So.
Well, yeah, but the thing, and I also have to test it a bit more now, but. Because unfortunately, when we played at Gothcon, it was just the 2 days earlier they had come with the new helicopter rules. So the thing that really flipped it for me was that I hadn't anticipated how powerful the shoppers could be with the old rules. I mean, when they could still shoot, and also in the combinations with the
super evade save.
Oh yeah, and I mean the Steel Guard, anti-infantry, super shoot everything and kill everyone squad. It just went. I had underbalanced my anti-air alternatives in my list, and now we go to Poland with 3 mats. Even if you can come in, I mean, in the middle in one of the scenarios, if you really want to try at least to come. To get a good placing in Poland, you have to be able to play on the long space there, and then it doesn't work for you. You have to have that combination of units, and they can't handle that. But I still think if you balance it right against aircrafts, the Blutkreuz on 2 mats is still formidable. But if you want to have it work with 3 mats, and then you have to. I think you should have to mix it.
It's a difficult force to play in for different reasons, but yeah, that's right.
So basically, we hope to get some kind of boost for the Blutkreuz at some point.
Yeah, they need 1 or 2 more walkers or something like that, just to for the long range.
Yeah.
Because right now they can't compete. I mean, the small anti-aircraft walkers they got, the Heinrich, they are good, but they have 8 in range, so it doesn't help. They can even.
I'm surprised.
Snowlink they have, but
I'm surprised they haven't released more double faction or even triple faction cards.
Yeah.
Like for example the laser walkers. Why are they only block?
Yeah, there should be
the Wotan or Jagd Wotan and stuff.
Yeah.
Why aren't they Blutkreuz?
Yeah. And the small one with the laser as well.
Yeah, for example, but I'm thinking especially at least one or maybe even all of them, the bigger ones, because they are also worth a lot of points, so it's easier, so to speak, to claim the faction bonus by using them. So you don't have to use your small 25% part of your points to buy those units. So a few more of them. And that's not only true for the Blutkreuz. I mean, some of the other factions could also really use some more walkers, and especially like 1 or 2 bigger walkers.
Yeah, Red Guards, for instance, they seem to get so streamlined. They are just one unique. All list looks the same if you play Red Guard, and there should be some at least possibility to diversity between the faction itself.
Of course, this is also kind of a balance act, because if you're playing a faction list, a sub-faction, you should be a bit limited. You should not have, be able to take whatever you want, because then kind of loses the point of having this faction system. But I think, one or two more walkers for a lot of the factions would be nice.
Yeah, I agree.
But maybe we'll see that in the future.
We'll see. And with that, I think that's everything for this episode. So, big thank you to all you listeners from me, Johannes.
And from Magnus.
And from me, Lotta, and see you in Poland, I would like to add.
Yeah, absolutely. So for all of you out there, and especially you guys attending the European Championships, we will literally see you on the battlefield. All music used in this podcast is by Kevin MacLeod at incompetech.com. If you want to get in contact with me and this podcast, you can email dustwarjournals@gmail.com, or you can follow me on Twitter or Instagram at dustwarjournals.